And here we go once again. Another Tuesday night, another college football playoff rankings unveiling. Don't you love it? Well, we'll see how much we love it once they get unveiled, huh? All right. Ohio State fans, Michigan fans, Cincinnati fans, Notre Dame fans, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia fans. Georgia, well, you can rest easy. You don't need to worry about anything. Oregon fans, yes, the season is over for you as it pertains to the playoff. Wake Forest fans, you too. Took that hard against Clemson, did you not? All right, so the teams narrow each and every week. Michigan State, bye-bye. But here we are. Oklahoma State becomes kind of a new chic topic of a team as they head toward Bedlam. And here we go. We're close to the unveiling of the top 25. Appreciate everybody being here. As soon as we get the top 25 and possibly hear from the chair, we will open up the phone lines to all of you. Here we go. So Arkansas was what last week? They're at 25 now. I believe they fell. So Arkansas loses to Alabama by one touchdown on the road, 42-35, and they fall 4 spots. Makes no sense. Houston in at 24, Clemson at 23. Not rated last week, Clemson. Okay. I agree. Texas, San Antonio. Again, great story. Awesome. I appreciate the hard work by the players and coaches that make that happen, but they are not one of the 25 best teams in the country. San Diego State at 21. I wrestle with San Diego State as I do with all the other group of 5 teams. Think about what Reese Davis just mentioned. Houston opening week against Texas Tech lost that game after leading by 21 points. Otherwise, we would have a Houston-Cincinnati situation. Would that not be phenomenal? Would that not be phenomenal if we had Houston and Cincinnati undefeated playing an American Conference Championship game? All right, NC State at 20. Utah, of course, rose considerably up to 19. Wake Forest dropped considerably after their loss to Clemson in blowout fashion. Pitt at 17. Iowa at 16. So Wake Forest, despite that big loss to Clemson, still controls the Coastal Division or the Atlantic Division as they take on Boston College. All right, folks, top 15. Here we go. Let's go. I'm going to produce a video and release it here in the next couple days that is going to run through all the scenarios. I've mapped out the scenarios in all the divisions. All right, Texas A&M 15, Wisconsin 14, BYU, Michigan State, of course, took a tumble, and Oregon took a tumble only to 11. Oregon only to 11. I blasted Oregon after that loss to Utah. Oregon will be playing for a berth in the Pac-12 championship game against Oregon State, so that'll be fun this Friday. Yeah, I got to produce that video with the various scenarios in the division races because I look forward to that kind of stuff. I get geeked up for that kind of stuff. I took all those notes. Yeah, I'll have a video coming out on that. And as soon as we get through the top 10 here, we'll listen to the chair, hear from all of you, and fire up the phone lines. Okay. Oklahoma rises 3 spots. Had a nice game against Iowa State. Didn't dominate the game. Had to hold off the Cyclones in the red zone to finish that one off. Ole Miss at 9. All right. Baylor. Look at that. Baylor's made a move. Baylor. Who did Baylor beat last week? Kansas State. They jumped up 3 spots. Okay. So they kept these 3 in order. Ole Miss beat Vandy. Oklahoma had the best win against Iowa State. Baylor at 8. Yeah, Baylor's been amazing. Baylor has been amazing. Baylor is like the team of the year, whatever that means. They've just come from nowhere. Comeback team of the year. Oklahoma State at 7. This Bedlam game is going to be fascinating to see. Is Oklahoma State for real? Are they going to be able to? Is this particular Oklahoma State team got the mindset, the tenacity, the mentality, the determination, the toughness to get past that psychological barrier against OU? All right, 1 through 6. Here we go. All right, Georgia. Looking good, looking strong, looking like number one. That's who they are. Number one. Okay, we know. Two. Oh, the Buckeyes jumped. Man, is this committee, do they watch the top 25 that actually makes sense? I wonder. Alabama struggled. Did Alabama actually have to pay for a bit of a struggle on Saturday? I guess they did. So wait a minute. Alabama beats Arkansas. Arkansas hung with the number 2 team in the country, and they dropped 4 spots. And nor was Alabama given much credit for beating the number 20, whatever team, 21 team in the country. Okay. So I'm guessing it's going to go Cincinnati, Michigan, Notre Dame. I don't think they're going to leap Michigan based on a win against Maryland. So it's going to be Cincinnati at 4, Michigan 5, Notre Dame 6. There they are. How would everybody feel about that playoff? Georgia against Cincinnati, Ohio State against Alabama. It's coming down to Cincinnati or the Big 12. Cincinnati or the Big 12. I want some things to become a little bit more cloudy here. Yes, that Oregon situation really helped the committee. It helped me, helped the committee, just helped me in terms of my rankings. But yeah, that Oregon did the committee a huge favor, enormous favor. Man, you guys are making comments, aren't you? Let's check them out. Yeah, Jesse, Ohio State number 2. We got Let's Toast Media. Go Blue, Michigan. Yes. ZZM, good to see you. Let's go Bucks, DJ. Got all sorts of good folks on here. Yes, you can take the suspense. You got it out of the way. And you're an Ole Miss fan. You've lost twice. And you can't take the suspense? DJ, good to see everyone. I got to wake up. I've been on cruise control recording all day. My goodness. Let's get the chair on here. I want to hear from the chair, and then we'll take your calls. There you go, Zethus. How does this thing compare to the top 25 that actually makes sense? Good question. Okay, so let's see. I've got Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Alabama 3, Michigan 4, Cincinnati 5, Oklahoma State 6, Notre Dame 7, Ole Miss 8, Baylor 9, Oklahoma 10, Michigan State 11, Wisconsin, etc. Okay, we're not going to sit through commercials, are we? Let's fire up the phone lines and talk to all of you fine folks out there here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate everybody being here and sitting through all of that. Now we can talk. Okay.
Welcome, host. You have not started a show session in Collins Studio and cannot yet receive calls on Mark Rogers' Voice of College Football. Please visit the Collins Studio website and begin your session. Music will play until your session begins.
Don't want to hear the music. I always hate hearing the music. Don't want to hear that awful piano music. Let's get it off there. Yes. Phone lines are open, everyone. 860-499-3332. I'll post the number. And first caller, I apologize if I try to listen to the chair at the same time. But we do not want to wait through commercials and wait for the chair to come on. So let's take some calls. Let me make sure I've got my audio square. All right. Here's the chair. All right, folks on the phone lines, give me just a second. Let's hear from the chair since he's right here ready to talk. And we'll probably not answer any of our questions.
State certainly got the committee's attention. The offense of Ohio State just total domination. Defense playing much better. And they've been playing better week after week. And now they beat Penn State, they beat Purdue. Alabama's still a great football team. Had a wonderful win against Ole Miss. The last few weeks, just not showing as much domination on defense. So two great teams, but when the vote came down, Ohio State came ahead of Alabama.
And once again, Cincinnati sets a high water mark for the highest ranked team outside of Power 5 conference. Without looking ahead, what is the level of separation at the moment between Cincinnati and the teams you have ranked in the Big 12?
I think most people have heard that we don't really talk about separation. We certainly talk about teams.
We don't talk about separation.
One of the things we talked about all year is that win at Notre Dame continues to look better with every passing week. And this past week, the win they had against SMU came in 8-2, and Ritter just continues to show like he's
SMU's not that good. Let me tell you, SMU's not that good. Beating SMU is proving what?
Closer to being evaluated in the cluster with Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama, or closer being evaluated in the cluster with Michigan, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma State?
That's a fair question, a good way to ask it. And the honest answer is, when we were looking at clusters, we looked at Cincinnati both up with 1 through 3, and we also looked at Cincinnati comparing to 5, 6, and 7. So they were compared to both groups, and they ended up at 4.
How they ended up by 4 easily, or ended up at 4 barely?
We've had a lot of respect for Cincinnati all year. We certainly have talked about their strength of schedule, but this win against SMU, when we were looking at the way they played offensively and defensively, they came in at 4. A lot of discussion. There's 13 members of the committee. There's certainly a disagreement at times, but when the vote came down, they were 4, and then Michigan at 5.
The quietest number 6 that I can remember in all of the years of the college football playoff is Notre Dame. Notre Dame is likely going to go to 11-1 after beating Stanford this week. Their schedules let them down, candidly, in the preseason. It looked like a really aggressive one. A lot of teams have fallen short. How does the committee look at Notre Dame relative to its strength of schedule and how they're evaluating those clustered against the conference, the teams playing for conference championship over the next couple of weeks?
Well, Notre Dame's been building momentum all year. They play terrific defense. Their offense has a lot of weapons, a lot of experience there. In the last few weeks, they beat Georgia Tech handily. Georgia Tech didn't look very good. They played Navy. They played some teams that maybe haven't helped their strength of schedule, but a terrific team. Notre Dame is highly thought of by the committee.
They've certainly improved the schedule that you look at.
Everyone is highly thought of by the committee. Okay, here we go. Let's kick this thing off here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's the real MVP. How you doing?
Of course it is. The real MVP. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I didn't hear any piano music this time, so you were pretty quick on it.
I had to hear it, but just for a few seconds. Not too bad this time.
No, I understand what the commissioner is saying. Well, I looked at them top 3. This is so frustrating listening to the commissioner. Just answer the question with a yes or no. Stop giving this abstract stuff. It's frustrating. All we want to know is with Cincinnati, can they be jumped? If the answer is yes, just say yes. But no, say no.
So we both know that he knows, and everyone in the committee knows, that they've thought about what if Cincinnati wins all the games, and what if they squeak by, or what if they blow out Houston, versus if Oklahoma State wins the last 2 and they look impressive against Oklahoma twice. What is that going to look like? What are we going to think of that? They know that. They're already anticipating that scenario playing out and what they think.
Right. And I just wish we could get an honest answer for once, but we won't. So let me ask you this, Mark. I was surprised personally with where Oregon was ranked. I thought 11 was too high. I thought they probably should be around 14 or 15. What did you think about Oregon's ranking?
Oregon played a decent team on Saturday night, the best team that they've played since they played Ohio State, and they got completely manhandled, bludgeoned, beat up, bullied, looked awful, blowout. Yeah, Oregon's resume now is, well, it's the same resume as it was before that game in terms of wins. Ohio State is it, and their two biggest wins are Fresno State and UCLA in very, 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 very close fashion. And now they've got a loss. They've got a loss to a bad team that continues to get worse, Stanford, and they've got a loss to a team that's a good team, a top 25-ish team. It's a good team, not a great team by any stretch. And they got trampled. So that to me is not the 11th best resume.
Well, I was shocked because the team right below them is Michigan State. And I understand them getting being bloodied up by Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State's a great team, but their schedule and their wins, even though Oregon beat Ohio State, their wins are so much better than what Oregon has even come close to all year. I'm really surprised. I'm assuming that game is Ohio State is still the only reason Oregon's ahead of Michigan State.
Oh, yes. That Ohio State game is carrying that ranking.
Right. Which is something. Now, Mark, let me ask you this, okay? Oklahoma is 10. And if they win out, okay, Cincinnati wins out. Alabama loses by 7 to Georgia. And there's 2 spots available. Who gets in?
I think Alabama's going to, well, in that case, we've got a spot for Cincinnati and for Alabama, or we've got a spot for Alabama and another team. So,
well, I said Oklahoma goes on to 12-1.
Sure.
With the conference champion. That's why.
Sure.
So there's 3 teams.
Well, I think the way this is leaning right now is that Cincinnati's going to get a spot in that scenario. I don't know that they're going to move Oklahoma or Oklahoma State all the way up.
Right. This kind of reminds me of, remember earlier in the season we were talking about how ideally for Cincinnati they would have to beat SMU. If they went like 11-0 and they'd be 15. They'd be 15 in the country, and then they would play like 2 or 3 weeks later and they'd be in 20th in the country. I'm kind of getting that vibe from Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. Both of these teams, one of them's going to fall down to probably 13 or 14, and then they're going to fall down again to like 20th. And I wonder if beating the same team twice is as impressive as beating 2 different teams in the committee's eyes.
I think in the committee's eyes, I would guess, as it would be generally in my eyes, that that beating 2 different teams. It just so shows diversity against a different style, against different players, different situation, that you're able to beat them. Although many of us also adhere to the sports logic that it's difficult to beat the same team 2 times. So especially if you're playing a team that is, the perception is that that team is better than you, and let's say you beat them but barely, and a lot of people wouldn't believe the win. You know, just imagine Oregon beating Ohio State again. Like, how much credibility would they gain beating Ohio State again? Because people didn't believe the first one. But if they beat them again, then you can't really dispute that.
Well, can I give a little pushback to that?
Sure.
Oregon, when they played, it was in September. The problem I have for Oklahoma State and Oklahoma is they're going to play back-to-back weeks. So I don't know how much improvement there can be. Where if Oregon did that now, I think there'd be so much improvement, perceived improvement by Ohio State. It would be more impressive.
Yeah, I know that this has happened in the NFL a handful of times where, because the way things shook out, two teams played at the end of a regular season in a game that was meaningful, and then they had to play in the first round of the playoffs the very next week. And I don't have a rundown of how that fared, but sometimes you get completely different games the next time around, even if it is only 6 or 7 days later. Shoot, Cincinnati played Memphis. This was 2 years ago. They played them in the conference championship game, or they played them in the last regular season game, then turned around and played them in the conference championship game 6 days later. I think they just beat them both times.
Right. And I know last year in the NFL, the Browns played the Steelers to get into the playoff, and then they beat them again by like 40 something.
There you go.
In the playoff game.
Yeah.
But Kirk Herbstreit and them, I thought this was crazy. They said Cincinnati could get to 3. What are your thoughts about Cincinnati being 3?
Well, I think what they're going for there is that if Alabama loses an SEC championship game and stays in the playoff, because of those 2 losses, they're not going to elevate. I guess that was their scenario. I didn't hear their scenario on Cincinnati finishing 3, but I would think that the committee, even though the committee is just in place to select the 4 teams and to seed them, they've got to be thinking about matchups, and they don't want to play Alabama and Georgia back to back. So I wouldn't think that would happen in that case.
Right, which is, I don't like that personally. I think you should have the 4 best teams in the order you think is best. If Alabama happens to be 4th and Georgia's 1, and they played the week before, and you think that's 1 and 4, that's the way it should be.
I agree.
Yeah, and is there any chance Notre Dame gets in? I've heard some talk about Notre Dame getting in. What are your thoughts about that?
How do they get in? Well, they need sabotage. Sure, they can get in. I can lay out how they can get in. Wisconsin wins the Big Ten championship game. That knocks out the Big Ten. Baylor wins the Big 12 championship game. That knocks out the Big 12. And you've got Georgia, Alabama, Cincinnati, and Notre Dame.
Yeah. That's crazy. They're just that shark in the water.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, it was good talking to you.
All right, man. Always appreciate you calling.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
No problem. Make sure to like the video.
There you go. Like this video. The real MVP commands it. We will catch you soon. All right. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's James Earl Jones. How are you doing?
George, what's going on?
How you doing?
We are doing well. What's up?
Somebody told me you reported Napier might go to Florida.
I reported that. Well,
did you do that?
I did not report it. I am discussing it because it's being reported elsewhere. I do not break news. That is not my role. So no, I am not breaking any news that is not already on the internet.
So it's still wide open. It could be anybody.
Well, it's I got to say there's a lot of smoke.
Some lady in the live stream called LA Mom, she said she would be jealous if we got him because she wanted him at Louisiana State. Is he that good?
Well, he's good enough to win games at Louisiana. Yes, he's considered that good. He might be good
Could
enough
he
for
be
you
like
guys.
Kirby Smart?
He might be good enough.
Can he get us a
He
Can he
might.
get us a top 5 recruiting class every year like Kirby does?
That remains to be seen. He might be good enough in Florida's eyes that they're not even going to be going after anybody else but him. It doesn't
If I
sound
could
like
just
you're
be
too
a football
impressed.
coach, if I don't, I'm going to back whoever we get. What if he's the man? What if he's Urban Meyer or Steve Spurrier
That's right.
or something? You know?
That's right.
I was watching a mainstream TV show on regular TV today. It's on my TV right now. I never watched it ever. I can't stand it. It's all baseball betting and NBA betting and odds. It's called Sports Grid. It's on Bounce TV. Have you ever heard of that?
What does this have to do with the playoff rankings?
They were talking about football, college football for a minute. They
Yeah.
hardly ever talk about college football. And you know what the guy said? He said it takes all, this is on mainstream TV. He said it takes all the fun out of college football when you watch Arkansas play Alabama, and Alabama gets every single replay call, every single call on the field. They won every call in the whole game, and I'm sitting there trying to take football serious. He said they're ruining the game. They need to straighten up. Like, you can't do that. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know if that gentleman knows what he's talking about. He would have to back that up. For me, he would have to back it up with facts. So if I'm putting that documentary together, I just don't listen to what people have to say and take it as gospel truth. I would say, have you logged all the replay calls involving Alabama to let us know that this is true?
All right. If I was the Florida head coach, they have a rule now, right? It's instant play for first-time transfer portal people. You can go any school, play the first year, but you can only do it one time, right?
Yes.
That's free agency. If Napier gets hired at Florida, he can call the top 74 players in the country and say, hey, I'll take you. I love this shit. It's a whole new world now.
Well,
isn't it?
technically, he can't do that. That's tampering. He can't call up student athletes from other
Right, he
schools
would
and
have
ask
to
them
have
to
some
come play.
disinterested third party
Yes.
call them, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick Saban knows how to do that. Yeah. All right. How about this, Mark? There are certain people in the world out there that have nothing better to do but argue who's number 11 and 17. While we're all like worried about the top 5 and who's going to squeeze in and what if Michigan wins. He's arguing about number 11. I'm like, come on.
Well, I gotta say, George, don't discourage those people. Don't put them down. They speak my language. That's why I'm here. They keep me going.
I know.
They keep me
you saved
going.
me the other night with that. You saved me the other night about that greatest hit, and you said, yeah, that was Auburn, Ohio State, Dumas.
Yes.
And
Zach
I went and
Dumas.
Googled it and watched that play.
Yeah.
I would send it to my friends, but you knew it, and I didn't. The guy asked me to ask you, and you're like, yeah, that was the 1989 Sugar Bowl or something.
Yeah, Hall of
What
Fame.
was that?
Bowl.
I went and watched that hit. That was glorious.
Yeah, it was a massive hit. Just knocked him off his feet, cleats up in the air. Yeah, that was pretty devastating.
Okay,
Yes.
2 last questions. On a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think the chance is that Ohio State will beat Michigan?
8.5.
1 to 10. 8.5? Okay, that's good. I like that. And what do you think the chance is Ohio State will go to the playoffs and beat Georgia and win the next title? 1 to 10.
2.5.
Really? That far?
Yeah.
You won't even give them a 3? Come on.
2.5.
Nobody can beat Georgia. Nobody can
2.5.
beat Georgia. That's
Well,
what
they
you're
got to
telling
win
me.
2 games. They got to win 2 games. And this is after they beat Michigan. You're giving me a lot of scenarios there that have to come into fruition there.
We should just hand Georgia the title right now. There's no
Yes,
reason to finish
let's do
the
that.
season.
Hand Georgia the
All right.
title. No. Let's play some football. Let's watch it. Let's see if somebody can handle them. All right, George. I'm moving on.
I ran out of questions. All right, bye.
Have a good night. Thanks. And our folks who were on the line waiting just hung up. Appreciate everybody being here. So we've got our watch party tonight, of course, responding to the college football playoff rankings. We finished up live streams with Iowa today, Florida State, and Miami. And then here on Wednesday, we've got a 12:30 Eastern Time Oklahoma live. We've got Ohio State live at 1:30. Michigan fans, Ohio State fans, that should be a big one. We should have like 1,000 people online for that one. Ohio State and Michigan, 1:30 Eastern. And for you Michigan fans, Michigan live with Ohio State guests on at 5 o'clock on the Michigan channel. So get that. At 1:30, we've got our Ohio State show. We're going to have Steve Dace from Michigan Podcast on. And then at 5 o'clock Eastern, Tony Gerdeman from Buckeye Scoop's going to join us on our Michigan Live. Wow. Only here at the Voice of College Football. And then at 7 o'clock, Miami Live on Wednesday night, heading into Thanksgiving, everyone. What is the bear telling us? I love the bear. Let's get to what you all have to say. And again, I'm going to produce a video here in the next couple of days that will be posted about the various championship scenarios this weekend in all the conferences. So look forward to that. We have recorded in the last couple days Georgia, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State, Nebraska, Iowa, and others. Clemson today. And I'm trying to make my way to the end of the chat because George always gets on me for reading the comments that are a half hour old. So I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm going to go right to where we are since nobody's calling me. A lot of people on the line, nobody calling me though. That's shocking, surprising. We got okay, I certainly chose the wrong comment there. Charles, I will ask Steve that very question on our show tomorrow. See if he can show us the Buckeye pajamas. D Brown, let's talk about the spread being under 9, like I said. D Brown, your selection on the Ohio State Michigan spread was 4. Somebody here, man, I hate to toot my own horn. I hate to do that, but sometimes you just got to. When we talked about the point spread last week, what the point spread would be Ohio State against Michigan on the Michigan show. D Brown said it was going to be 4. Somebody here, it's on record, said it was going to be, how about 8? And it just happens to be 8. Lane Kiffin to Miami. The Wholesome One and myself had I thought it was an interesting discussion concerning Lane Kiffin to Miami and whether that makes long-term success or long-term sense for Miami. Seems like Miami should be desperate, willing, and wanting to do anything to get Lane Kiffin. But does it make long-term success and long-term sense? Yes, Clemson is finally ranked. They should be. Keeping it real. Thank you. I try. Alabama is the toughest path to the playoffs. They have to beat Georgia. You know, Brandon, that's the dilemma. That's the argument. That's what we have to all wait and see. Alabama may have the toughest path to the playoffs since they have to beat Georgia, but they may not have the toughest path. They may have one of the easiest paths because not that it's easy to go out and compete against Georgia, but they may not have to beat Georgia. That could be the case. For me, the way this is shaking out, it's a competition between Cincinnati and the Big 12. And it's also, will Alabama take up a second spot from the SEC? Welcome into the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Minnesota Dave.
Minnesota Dave joining us.
How's it going?
It's good. All is good. What's going on with you?
Yeah, I'm just, looking at the college football playoffs and, it's all about rivalry week. None of these teams that are playing the big rivals in the last game should not be taking them lightly. It's expected to win. It's that's what makes this college football always exciting. Especially to me, this is the best in college football. This rivalry week, and then I would have to say bowl games are like the second best.
I agree with you. I love rivalry week, but I will ask this question. So you just said we can never anticipate what's going to happen. We may get surprised. So what big underdogs this weekend have a good shot of upsetting a rival?
Auburn.
Auburn. Okay.
I think Auburn could beat Alabama. We've seen it before. And
yes, we have.
Are they playing in Bama or are they playing in Auburn?
They're playing on the plains of Auburn.
There you go. That makes it even more of a chance. We all remember that kick return for a touchdown in the last second. That was probably one of the best college football moments ever in a long time. Well, at least in the early 2010s.
Yeah, well, that Auburn team was quite a bit better than this one.
Yeah, but there's been didn't they had an Auburn team. The Auburn team that lost to Minnesota in the Outback Bowl was the team that beat Bama too.
Yeah.
So
again, those two teams were pretty comparable, but Auburn pulled off an upset. I don't know that it was a substantial upset that year. They were a 9-3 team, and Alabama finished 10-2. Again, those were Gus Malzahn teams. This is the first time Brian Harsin has coached in this rivalry against Alabama. And Alabama's defense has been pretty bad the last few weeks, but we have no Bo Nix on the Auburn side. I would tend to be on the bandwagon to a certain extent if Bo Nix was still healthy.
All right. And the other thing is I called in about Notre Dame's scheduling, and we had a little bit of an argument. I think there was more of a misunderstanding. I was trying to basically say that if Notre Dame was playing a non-Power 5 school, that they should maybe leave a room on the spot to on their schedule if they're going to make a deal with the conference to say that we'll take the champion. And I think there was a little misunderstanding on that. I know and just saying in the future type things, maybe doing that, because I know they have always have to have the ACC schools now, the 5 ACC schools that they want to put in, or the ACC wants to put in, depending on who is doing what. And I just feel that, if you're going to play someone like a Mid-American Conference team or a Mountain West team, you should at least play the last year's champion on that.
So let me get this straight. You want Notre Dame to play the conference champions from the previous season. How many of them?
Not many. It's just basically if you are going to play or going to put a spot for let's someone like the Mid-American Conference or the Sun Belt or the Mount West, that you would just say, okay, we just want to make a deal with the conferences to play their last year's champion, to make it at least a little bit more of a powerful schedule. Doesn't always mean it will be, because those teams are not always guaranteed to always be good the next year.
Yeah, that's not going to happen for so many reasons. I could be here all night explaining. It's just not going to happen.
I know.
And it's also not feasible in a number of ways. So you were making the statement to try to give Notre Dame a way of improving its schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, Notre Dame does not have to apologize for its schedule. Its schedule is difficult. Maybe not this specific schedule in 2021, but Notre Dame's schedule's as difficult as anyone in the country on a consistent basis. Everybody plays group of 5 teams.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why I'm just trying to say that we can go over this till we're blue in the face. I know how you have to always make deals with teams shoot almost 8 years, 9 years in advance. To play certain teams. So I was just wondering if they could have done that with just those smaller conferences.
Okay. Again, one of the issues that's going to come up, let's just take the Mid-American Conference. Okay. If the Mid-American Conference strikes a deal with Notre Dame and says, our champion is going to play you each and every year the next season, number one, I don't know where this benefits Notre Dame, because the committee is not going to view Notre Dame's schedule to be that much more difficult just because they played the MAC champion from the season before, as opposed to playing the third place team from the MAC. That's going to be inconsequential to Notre Dame's schedule strength. The other thing is that the MAC has to hold up its scheduling in order to determine who that team's going to be.
Yeah, and that's I understand that. I was trying to maybe think that maybe the MAC would probably say MAC would probably maybe make deals with both subdivision teams. The field, they usually do that. They make deals with both subdivision teams. Like Sam Houston State and North Dakota and South Dakota and schools like that.
Well, I appreciate the call, and call back anytime, man.
All right, I will.
All right. So we have a nomination for the most ridiculous comment of the night from Chris, who says the playoffs are so ridiculously stupid. So Chris, if you're talking about these specific playoffs, the playoffs that are played in college football that have been formatted by this committee, well, the committee didn't formulate, they choose the playoff teams. But so I can agree with your statement to a certain extent, but for a completely different reason than why you posted that statement. So playoffs are not stupid or ridiculous. Playoffs are a fundamental foundation of American sports, that you play a regular season, you schedule a regular season where we know week to week who is playing whom. And then at the conclusion of that, you take the best teams in a logical manner based on record, and then they go play playoffs. It's competitive, it's exciting, and it's also fair and fundamental to determining a fair champion. Now, this particular playoff system is somewhat ridiculous, but it's the best thing we have right now, and it's better than what we've had before. So we went from back in the old days, pre-1998, to many of you remember these days where we would go to bed on New Year's night and we thought we knew who won the national championship because we just watched the Rose Bowl and the Orange Bowl and the Sugar Bowl and the Cotton Bowl that day. But we didn't know for sure, but we could say, we think that team won the national championship. We'll have to wake up in the morning, get our newspaper, and open it up. And then, oh, okay, Nebraska won the national championship. Oh, no. Wait, over here, we've got the Coaches Bowl. Michigan won the national championship. Okay, they both won the national championship. Okay, got it. We thought maybe Michigan would win both polls, or we thought Nebraska would win both polls, but they split. So, okay. So that's the way we would do it way back when. We'd watch all the big bowl games on New Year's Day. And New Year's Day was just, for as great as it is still today, it just doesn't compare to what it was back then, because it was everything. New Year's Day, Rose Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Orange Bowl. But that's what we did through 1997. Is we would have to wait for the voters to make their votes that night, and we would find out the next morning who won the national championship. Then, of course, this pathetic BCS concoction was put together starting in 1998, and it never worked and continued to fail year after year after year after year after year. But at least there was a championship game involved. But that championship game, of course, the teams that were selected was a big failure based on the system being faulty. And then, of course, we went into this playoff era, which I stated very succinctly when the playoffs started. When asked, is this good for college football? Is this a good thing? I said, well, number one, yes, simply because it affords two worthy teams the opportunity, two more, the opportunity to play for a championship. So that's a good thing that we now have four teams that can compete on the field for a championship. But the way they're selected, wrong. And the number of spots, wrong. We've got 5 conferences, major conferences, 10 conferences total. So how does that fit? What mathematician came up with 5 fitting into 4? So that has never worked. But is it better than what we had before? Yes and no. I will say yes, in that we're playing 3 games on the field between 4 really good teams. That gives us a strong indication who the best team is, versus way back when, at least it wasn't a farce back in the poll days. That didn't pretend to be anything or didn't claim itself to be anything that it wasn't. Strictly was a voted champion. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's J-Dub calling from Des Moines. How are you this evening?
I am doing great. How's it going tonight?
Hey, I just thought I would throw a little sad news in here to start off with. I found out today that the longtime beat writer for Alabama sports at the Tuscaloosa News, Cecil Hurt, I'm sure you know the name, has passed away. He was hospitalized for several weeks with pneumonia. and he passed away today. He was the beat writer at the TN when I was a student at Bama in the late 80s. So I knew Cecil, and a great guy, and just sad news there that he's passed on.
Yeah, it certainly is. I'm not aware of that individual, but that's certainly anytime someone passes away, that is sad news.
Yeah. Well, one of the old salts, one of the old throwback writers, from the back in the day. Hey, I thought I would mention, there's been some talk about a close loss in Atlanta maybe keeps Bama alive in the playoffs. I think the committee put an end to that talk by dropping Bama to 3 now, because I think at 3, even with a narrow loss, they would have to drop a spot, and that would put them at 4. And they're not going to have Georgia play Alabama in the semifinals in a rematch. So I think Bama dropping to 3 pretty much cinches up that it's do or die for the Tide. They've got to win in Atlanta now, which I don't have a problem with that. I just think that this is clearing that road and removing any doubt, at least in my opinion. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that could be the case. What you just outlined, that the committee is making a statement that Alabama has not been a dominant team and needs to win that game against Georgia. But at the same time, there's a possibility that Michigan beats Ohio State and would elevate Alabama back to the number 2 spot entering the SEC championship game. I think the committee is going to. I think the committee's going to wrestle with Alabama as a 2-loss team, losing close to Georgia being a playoff team. I think that is going to be, if only we could go into that room and hear that discussion and all the other discussions, I guarantee that's going to be a split room on that topic.
Well, the problem you have with Alabama is that they've had so many narrow wins, and they have the narrow loss, but that's just it. I mean, they have one narrow loss, and yes, they didn't look great against LSU. Yes, they didn't look great against Florida. Yes, they didn't look great against Arkansas. But the thing is, they won those games. They're 10-1 despite all the talent that they lost. So I think they're a top 3 team as far as worthiness goes. But I mean, you've got Cincinnati out there. Cincinnati's big win over SMU didn't help Alabama any.
Sure.
They could have used Cincinnati looking, if not, even if they did win, they could have used them to have another narrow win. I think Oklahoma State is a sleeper out on the edge, but I'll let you go here. I just wanted to throw one thing in, and then I'll hang up and listen to your comments. How real do you think the threat is of a really stout Wisconsin defense giving whoever wins the Big Ten East a real scrap in the Big Ten title game? And I appreciate your call and wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
And happy Thanksgiving to you too. Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate that. So I guess I'll take these one by one. One being the latter comment about Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. I think that they would present a huge challenge to Ohio State as long as they can move the line of scrimmage on offense to create a running game that I still want to see Ohio State challenged, and thought that maybe Michigan State would be able to have the opportunity to run Kenneth Walker 25 or 30 times. But of course, the game became a rout so quickly, and Kenneth Walker was hobbled with a bad ankle. And so now we've got Hassan Haskins, who could possibly wear on that Ohio State defense, much like he did against Penn State, and keep Ohio State's offense on the sideline. So Wisconsin has the ability to do that. This Braylon Allen for Wisconsin is a beast. So Wisconsin is rounding into form. Their offensive line did not play well the first few weeks of the season, and they've discovered Braylon Allen. And as long as he stays healthy, that is their key to playing their kind of game against Ohio State and winning that. Against Michigan, I think it's even more pronounced that Wisconsin has a chance to win that game. And I know Michigan beat them by 21 points in Madison, but that was a long time ago, and that was a close game deep into the third quarter. So Michigan didn't blitz them from the start. It was a 3-point game at halftime. Wisconsin would play practically on even terms with Michigan. So I think Wisconsin is definitely a formidable opponent for Ohio State, and was the last 2 times that they played in Big Ten championship games. They led 21-7 at halftime against Ohio State the last time out in 2019, before the Buckeyes came back and won by 13. And then 2 years before that, it was a 27-21 game that Ohio State survived against an undefeated Wisconsin team. I'm trying to think of the others. So just in terms of what I think about this whole scenario with Alabama losing an SEC championship game and still making it, this is the issue that I have with rankings, and I run into the same problem myself. Take Arkansas, for example, tonight. Arkansas was number 21 in the playoff rankings last week. This week, they are number 25. They dropped 4 spots. Arkansas went on the road, played the number 2 team in the country, and took them down to a final possession, 42-35. Isn't that what we would expect to be a good performance for the number 21 team in the country, to go on the road, play the number 2 team in the country, and take them down to a 1-score game on the final possession, 42-35? And we're going to drop that team 4 spots? That's lost on me. I don't understand that logic. They're the 21st best team in the country. They played the number 2 team on the road within 1 score, 42-35. Really good competitive game. We're dropping them in the rankings. So back to Cincinnati and Alabama, I'm taking that same thought process to the Alabama situation, that if they are the number 2 or 3 team in the country entering the SEC championship game, and they play the team that has been crowned number 1, consensus number 1, nobody's close to them all year, and it's 31-30, what do we do with that? Do we expect anybody else in the country to play that close to Georgia? This is it's a debatable point. I debated the other point last night with a caller who said Alabama's got to be in the S. Well, their argument was a bit more ridiculous in that they said last night, a caller said that if Alabama loses by 24 points in the SEC championship game, they should still make the playoff. And I said, okay, no. Why do we want to reward a team for losing by 24 points in an SEC championship game? And he said, well, Oklahoma State would lose by that many. Well, at least give them the opportunity. We already saw Alabama do it, and they're not competitive. So if that were the case, in no such way, if that happens, I will throw a fit. Then why play the games? Then we've shut down the sport to one conference and a couple of teams. We've shut the sport down to the SEC, Ohio State, and Clemson, and Oklahoma. And they're the only teams that can make it. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Oh, hello, it's me, Roberto.
Hey, Roberto. How you doing?
Great. Pretty proud of the state of Ohio jumping up the rankings, doing the top 4.
I know you love that.
X University and my favorite, and my fan favorite team, Ohio State, of course. I had a question about the status of the Big 12. Do you think they have a outside shot? And what scenarios would it be for that to happen? The 3 of them in the top 10.
Well, the
Oklahoma
obvious
State, Baylor.
the obvious scenario is that Cincinnati loses the American Conference Championship game and Oklahoma State wins out. Then they'll be in the playoff.
All right. Then
The more
And Oklahoma has
difficult
to take-
scenario to answer is that Oklahoma State wins out and Cincinnati wins the American Conference Championship. Does Oklahoma State leap Cincinnati? I think the committee is telling us no, but I think they should.
All right. And if the scenario of Bama losing by 24, that would be Georgia, Ohio State, maybe Cincy at third. For that fourth spot, either be one of the Big 12. Or could that go to Notre Dame or something?
Georgia, Ohio State, Cincinnati. And who gets the fourth spot?
Then that-
Alabama got blown out. Who's going to be in the fourth spot?
Yeah,
No,
like
it's
could it
gonna
be
be-
either
it's gonna-
one of the Big 12 or Notre Dame?
It's going to be Oklahoma State if they win their last two games. They'll pass Notre Dame.
All right. And if Oklahoma State wins, who goes? Is it going to be Baylor for the opponent, or is it Baylor? Is it Baylor no matter what? If they win that, if they beat what was it? Who does Baylor play? the
Baylor
last
plays
game?
Texas Tech. Okay.
All right. All right.
If Oklahoma State wins against Oklahoma, then obviously Oklahoma State's in the championship game. Oklahoma would then have the same record as Baylor. They would both have 2 losses, and Baylor, if they win the tiebreaker. And so Baylor would go to the Big 12 championship game.
If Baylor loses, it's Bedlam
Yes.
Bedlam round 2.
Bedlam round 2.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Regardless
Just
of who
wanted to clear
wins.
that up.
Yep.
That's it for me.
All right, Roberto.
Short one
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
for you too.
All right, everyone. It's been a good time here at the Voice of College Football. We've got the phone lines open, and I apologize that I did not post the number, did I? Because we certainly want some fresh blood. For as much as we love you old timers, some new folks joining us. 860-329 860-499 3332. 860-499-3332. There you go. Tomorrow we've got an Oklahoma live show on the Oklahoma channel at 12:30 Eastern. And I got to say, we've had a small gathering there for the last few weeks. So please give us some support. Oklahoma fans, join us. College football fans, join us on the Oklahoma channel at 12:30 Eastern Wednesday. 1:30 Eastern, Ohio State and Michigan fans, both of you groups, get together just this one time, just this one day all year. You can communicate with each other. We can do it in a civilized fashion. Ohio State Live at 1:30 Eastern on the Ohio State channel, and we'll simulcast on the Michigan channel. And we've got Steve Day stopping by from Michigan Podcast. That will be a treat, as will Tony Gerdeman from Buckeye Scoop joining our Michigan live show at 5 Eastern, and then Miami Live. And of course, the Hurricanes play their monumental rivalry week game against Duke coming up this Saturday. And for those of you who did not join us earlier, we had our Florida State show at a different day and time this week, 3 o'clock this afternoon, but we were joined by David Waters from Gators Breakdown, who gave us some great insight into the Billy Napier possible hiring at Florida. that George is just so excited about. Thank you for the super chat contribution, Travis. Appreciate that. How could we see an Ohio State-Cincinnati playoff game? Okay. Well, Ohio State's number 2 right now. They would hold at number 2 if they beat Michigan and win the Big Ten championship game. Cincinnati is currently at number 4. If Alabama loses the SEC championship game, well, Cincinnati would most likely move up to number 3. And the Big 12 champion, if it's Oklahoma State, most likely, but also Oklahoma getting through with 1 loss, would make it up to that 4 position. So we'd have a 2-3 Ohio State-Cincinnati playoff game. Can anybody give me the score to the last Ohio State-Cincinnati game? Don't cheat. The score of the last time Ohio State played Cincinnati. And then also, Ohio State's national championship team of 2002 won a key game. There you go. Nice job. Both Matt chimed in at 42-0. And then we also had Todd, who came through at 42-0. Yes, 42-0 in Columbus. And McD and Mark. Good job. Travis, 42-zip. Yes. How about this one? I'm about 90% sure this was the final score. Yes. Ohio State's national championship team of 2002 played Cincinnati at Paul Brown Stadium in Cincinnati, a rare road game for the Buckeyes, going to a, whatever we called them at the time, group of 5. They were an independent team. Let's see, in 2002. Yeah, that would have been before. I think that was before Cincinnati joined the Big East. They might have been in the Big East at that point. But Ohio State played at Cincinnati in 2002, the team that went on 14-0, won the national championship in the Fiesta Bowl against Miami. They played Cincinnati. That final score might be tougher to come up with without looking. Ooh, somebody's gonna guess in here. 23-17. Ooh, 23-17. I thought it was a different score, but that might be. All right, I'm gonna let anybody else take a shot before I'm gonna take my. There it is. Well done, Matt. 23-19. I'm almost positive that was the score of the Ohio State-Cincinnati game in 2002. Why I remember scores, I don't know. But well done, Matt. What was the total yardage in that game? That I can't come up with that one. That one's a little bit beyond me. I can tell you the attendance for the first Super Bowl, 61,946. I think I was asked a question about sports knowledge, football knowledge, all that, and told the story of when I was 11 and McDonald's was producing these Super Bowl booklets, and they were giving them away at the McDonald's. And it was just, for a football junkie like me at 11 years old who was just starting to get into the NFL, man, I just consumed those. And they had rosters. They had all the Super Bowl statistics, all the NFC and AFC championship game statistics from the first 12 Super Bowls. And I just inhaled those things. So I knew everything about the first 12 Super Bowls. Everything. Knew the attendance of the game, who scored first, who scored second, who scored. Yeah. I've been told at times I'm a bit obsessive compulsive, just a little bit. Yeah, I'm really neither one of those things. Maybe the obsessive when it comes to certain things like that. Yeah, You can see that compulsive. I'm really not compulsive, but yeah. Yeah, I know way too much about a few things and way too little about everything else in life. That hit me the other day in a conversation I was having with somebody, and it was just kind of brought up about being a know-it-all. And I thought, I hope I don't come across as somebody who thinks they're a know-it-all, because actually I think the very opposite of myself. Because if there's anybody on this planet that knows a little about a zillion things out there, about quilting, about Siberia, about needlepoint, about pears, about kangaroos, name your topic. I know nothing about it, but I know like a ridiculous amount about 3 or 4 subjects. That's not necessarily healthy or what I would advise anybody to do in approaching their life. That's not really that balanced. BW says San Diego State's better than Cincinnati. Last question of the night, unless somebody wants to call. Oh, suddenly I got 3 phone calls at least. Here we go. All right, let's put my little question on hold. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line? Hello?
Is it me? Hello?
Yes.
Mark. The Georgia fan, G-Dog Forever, he asked me, what's your P.O. box? He wants to send you a helmet.
Oh, okay. I will get that to him. Why doesn't he just write me at markrogerstv@gmail.com? markrogerstv@gmail.com.
Why don't you just tell us the address?
markrogerstv@gmail.com. Let's do that.
Okay, you heard that, G-Dog.
Thank you, George.
Do you not have a Georgia helmet for real?
No, I don't.
He's going to send you one for free.
That would be phenomenal. I would embrace it, and I will.
I don't blame you for not having one yet, but I have a feeling you're just going to be forced to put one up there.
I'm not going to be forced if nobody gets me one. I'm not getting any more. I don't see that happening.
He has it. He just.
And
so it's Mark Rogers at Gmail.
markrogerstv@gmail.com.
I
will promise that anybody who sends me a helmet, I will put it front and center on the top shelf for a month. It will stay on the top shelf in the middle for a month.
Hey, I've been laughing at Georgia for 40 years, right? But it's different this time, because even if they don't win the national title this year, by which they will, but if they don't, everyone's going to be horrified thinking about next year. It's just, they're so deep. They have a front 28, not a front 7.
George, I've got 2 words for you.
What?
One call.
Okay. I was just asking for G-Dog Forever. All right, I'm out of here. Bye.
And that's why I allowed it. All right, welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, what's up? Dominic's on the line. Been a while.
Dominic's here. Hey, Dominic, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I am doing just fine. Good to hear from you.
So, I wanted to talk about the teams that are ranked 1 through 6
Okay.
in the college football rankings.
All right.
So, starting off, you got the 11-0 Georgia Bulldogs sitting at number 1. I gotta say, Georgia has really showed how they can play this season, and I have to give credit to the Georgia Bulldogs. If they make the national championship, I think they may just win it. But we'll have to find out.
Was there a question in there somewhere?
Really,
Not really.
Okay.
What do you? But I was gonna ask you this. What do you think of Georgia so far?
I think that Georgia is the best football team in the country. It's not a very unique perspective.
they're all.
It's the same one that most people have, but it's the one that I have right now. But I do know that the 3 final games on Georgia's schedule this year, meaning going through the playoffs to a championship game, they're going to play the 3 best teams that they've seen this season. So I do want to see them play out the rest of the games.
Yep. But number 2, 10-1 Ohio State. I mean, I have to say, Ohio State's offense has really been looking well. They've only got a few games left. So if they keep up the good momentum, their offensive line, they may have a shot at making the national championship.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Number 3, the team that's also 10-1, Alabama. I mean, I have to say the same thing about Alabama's offense, like I just said about Ohio State. I mean, Alabama's quarterback has really been throwing passes to the receivers, and they've been really looking well. Their last few games may be kind of tough, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. Yes. Proceed.
Number 4, the team that's also undefeated, Cincinnati. I did not think Cincinnati was going to do this well, but they definitely surprised me the way they've been playing so far. I mean, just imagine if they win the national championship. That would be shocking for Cincinnati. I mean, they may have a shot.
Okay.
And at number 5, you got Michigan. Honestly, I have to say Michigan's defense has been really looking well. But, I mean, their offense has been looking amazing. I like the way Michigan's offense has been playing against their opposing teams. However, I don't think they're going to make to the national championship. I'm not trying to offend any Michigan fans or anything, but it's just my opinion on Michigan, even though they haven't been playing well. And at number 6, last but not least, you got the team that's also 10-1, Notre Dame. I mean, listen, Oklahoma State is right behind Notre Dame. So if Notre Dame, I'm not too sure if Notre Dame can make it, but I think they may have enough to hold on to that 6th spot. But you got to watch Oklahoma State because they're also 10-1. You got to keep your eye on Oklahoma State because they've been looking really well also.
All right, Dominic. Thank you for the analysis.
No problem. Have a good night.
Have a good night. All right. Let me just take a quick breath here. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's McD Sports Sport. How are you doing?
Hey, McD. Can you run through the top 6 teams and tell me why they're so good? Can you do that for me?
Well, I have 2 things to call about. The first thing I'll talk about is actually that number 16 Notre Dame. I think Oklahoma State should be ahead of Notre Dame. That's my biggest problem with the ratings, in my opinion, more than anything. I think Oklahoma State is a better team than Notre Dame. I think their resume is honestly better than Notre Dame. And I do believe if Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma, I do think Oklahoma State will get placed ahead of Notre Dame. But that's my biggest problem with the rankings. I think Notre Dame is not the 6th best team in the country. As a matter of fact, I think they're. I do think they're the 7th best team in the country, but that was my biggest problem with the rankings. So I just want to get your thought on that.
Well, I also have Oklahoma State ranked ahead of Notre Dame. So I completely agree with you. They have played a better schedule and they have played better against that schedule, even though Notre Dame has the more, in a strange way, impressive loss, having played Cincinnati. So I like Oklahoma State above Notre Dame as well.
Okay, so I didn't get crazy there. The second thing I wanted to hit on is the Dan Mullen getting fired from Florida. That whole situation, we'll call it. First of all, I want to say that I am going to be wrong. James Franklin has signed a 10-year extension with Penn State, so I don't think Dan Mullen is going to end up at Penn State. From where, just reading that, but I do want to say, people are going to sit there and say Dan Mullen lost the team. I've heard that get thrown around. He didn't lose that team. There was a video, I guess, after the Stanford victory, which that video should have never been released, of Dan Mullen dancing with his team after beating Stanford. So I don't think Dan Mullen lost the team at Florida. He got fired, in my opinion, primarily because of recruiting. I don't think, and I understand, like, Dan Mullen was his type of players and everything, and that's why, in my opinion, I think Washington State, Virginia Tech, and TCU will be great spots for him to get a head coaching job, because I do think he will be a head coach next year somewhere at a Division I school in the Power 5. But in my opinion, that's where it came down to, recruiting. I just want to get your thoughts on that whole situation of Dan Mullen getting let go.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think he lost the team. I think that I don't make judgment calls on that unless I have strong evidence to think that, and I don't necessarily think that. I think just he made a lot of missteps in the last year, lost a lot of key games, also didn't look good losing them, and also made some very odd and strange statements. And he is a bit of a strange dude as it is. But when it comes right down to it, yes, watching the team play as they did at the end of last season and then going into this season and having a disappointing year and knowing that the recruiting is nowhere close to where it needs to be. If you put those two things together, if he was bringing in the number 23 class in the nation as they currently stand, and they're losing commits by the hour, so who knows, they might be 58 right now. But number 23 in the country was the last I saw, and they were 10-2 right now, then he wouldn't get fired. But when you and on the flip side, if he was just having a down year at 5-6 right now, and he had the number 3 recruiting class in the country, he would not be getting fired. But it's those two things put together that is spelling doom for Dan Mullen.
And I know I get on Dan Mullen sometimes in my calls, but at the end of the day, I actually do think he has a great offensive mind. And as I said, I think Virginia Tech, TCU, and especially Washington State, I think there'll be good spots for him, because he can recruit his types of players. He could sit there, go 8-4, 9-3 every year, and no one would bat an eye at those records there at those schools. And I heard Billy Napier might be the guy coming in replacing Dan Mullen.
Yes, that's what it appears to be.
Okay. I don't know what to think about that personally, just because in my opinion, I don't know if Billy Napier has enough of a track record, because it seems like they just want consistency more than anything there at Florida, which I don't blame them after the past 3 head coaches. It's been roller coaster rides, but it'll be interesting to see what happens at Florida. It's one of the best jobs in the country, and they should be competing for national championships every year. But that's it for me, Mark. Thanks for taking my call. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and hope my Terps beat Rutgers. You better beat Rutgers. So thanks for taking my call, Mark.
You too, McD. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. All right, let's take these final two calls here at the Voice of College Football, and then we will say goodbye for the night. Welcome
Mark.
in. Who's on the line?
Hey, this is Jerry.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, this is Jerry. Hey, not too much. Long time follower, first time caller.
Oh, thanks for
just
calling.
want to get your thoughts on the Nebraska-Iowa game this Friday. Do you think there's any chance with the chaos happening that, it's like a college football or Rose Bowl for Iowa if they can win that one?
With the chaos happening. What do you mean by that? What chaos is going on at Iowa?
Well, I mean, 9-2 is in the Big Ten's a good record. So
sure,
we're just asking if they can, the Badgers lose to Minnesota and then Iowa beats Ohio State by, in some way. Could they have any chance at the college football playoff or not really?
Oh, the college football playoff. You boy. Well, what would have to happen for Iowa to make the playoff? So they win these games, obviously, and you're talking about beating Nebraska, which isn't going to help them much, and then Ohio State. So they're sitting at 11-2 as the Big Ten champion. They need Baylor. They need Baylor to win the Big 12. The ACC and the Pac-12 are no threats. That's your path right there. And you may not even need, well, you would need that because you got to think Cincinnati's going to have a spot.
So you think a one-loss Big 12 team would be above a two-loss Big 10 champ?
I think it would be an interesting debate. I don't know how the committee would view that because, put it this way, Iowa's number 20 right now, correct?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Iowa State's 7. Oklahoma State 7. And Oklahoma State will have beaten 2 top 10 to 12 teams in the country if they win the Big 12 championship with 1 loss. While Iowa will have beaten a Nebraska team that's going to just confirm their resume, but not going to do much. And then a monumental win, let's say, against Ohio State. But for them to leap all that area to challenge a 1-loss team that just beat 2 really good teams ranked in the top 10 or 11 in the country, that's not going to do it. So they need Baylor.
Yeah, I understand it's a long shot. I would just kind of get your thoughts on that. And lastly, I'm also a Notre Dame fan. You still live in South Bend. What is their path to the playoff, in your opinion?
Their path is Georgia beats Alabama significantly in the SEC championship game, and Iowa or Wisconsin win the Big Ten championship. That should get them there.
So they would leapfrog one of those teams there, or Ohio State.
Yeah. So your playoff would be, shoot, they may not even need that much. They need the Big 12 or the Big 10 to be canceled out. They need at least one of them to be canceled out.
Gotcha. Thanks a lot, Mark, for taking my call, and talk later. Thanks.
Well, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. All right. Next up here at the Voice of College Football, who's on the line? Let's take these last 2 calls. It was 2 calls about 4 calls ago, but I appreciate everybody calling in, but we'll just take these final 2. Welcome in.
Oh, this is Jeremiah.
Hey, Jeremiah.
You've been talking to Matthew Miller the past week or 2 in the Texas.
Yes.
Like the, I don't know how review preview. And he's been talking the post game about blaming about firing PK, the defensive coordinator, after some of the awful performances this season. And I don't think that that's a smart decision for Texas University. After, if we fired him, it would be our we'd be on our 5th coordinator in 5 years. And, have that continuity. I think that anybody who goes there is going to fail. And I think that PK was set up to fail from just the sheer fact that no one's able to establish a recruiting class after they've been fired. I don't know what you were thinking about that.
Well, I agree with you. And that's a surface, just knee-jerk response, not really knowing the inner workings of it. He's proven to be a capable defensive coordinator. And the performance has been well below standards, but I would like to see him with a full off season after having been hired and working with this unit for the first time in 2021, to see him go through another recruiting cycle and working with this unit through winter workouts, spring practice through August, and preparing them for the next season. Yeah, I am very hesitant to fire any coaches after one season.
Yeah, I think that hiring Jimmy Lake, since he got fired from Washington for the slapping incident with the player, might be a smart idea, since they've worked together and start trying to build up a staff that can recruit the West Coast as well. So I agree with him on that part. But I also wanted a quick point about Hudson Card and the Casey Thompson battle. And how a lot of the Texas media and fan base has completely ignored that Hudson Card has played much better every single game he's played, even though he's not played fantastic in these games. He's played with more presence. He's had more accuracy downfield, and I think we see that from Stark's training with him. And people were saying that they've seen the limits of Hudson Card after being a converted receiver to quarterback for 1 year in high school. Then he got shoved into COVID year in college. And this is basically his second year at quarterback. And the expectation was for him to walk in and be Trevor Lawrence. And that's kind of ridiculous. What you think?
Yeah, I haven't seen too much of Hudson Card since the Louisiana and Arkansas games, because obviously he lost the job not long after that. And I saw more Casey Thompson against Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. And then I've kind of put my watching of Texas football to rest the last few weeks. So, I just think that they're both young quarterbacks that have fairly different skill sets to a certain extent. And I was initially impressed with Casey Thompson. I had nothing to go on with Hudson Card coming into the season. I was rating Thompson just on that brief performance against Colorado in the Alamo Bowl, in which I thought he was just showed extraordinary skill for 10 passes, but just the ability to throw from different arm slots and move himself around in the pocket and find guys and throw some NFL type passes around the field, I thought was extremely impressive. But I think they both have shown that they're in a difficult situation. They have to score a ton of points, and the offensive line is not good at all. So that is difficult for any quarterback, but especially a young quarterback, to have to deal with, just knowing that they're, calling a play at the line of scrimmage and knowing most likely that they don't have the confidence in their offensive line to carry through on the play is difficult for a young quarterback to deal with.
Yeah, especially with the refereeing in these past few games have been kind of a strange and peculiar. Like 10 seconds after the whistle, a dude just decks our quarterback underneath his legs, and he gets injured. Hudson Card got injured at the end of the West Virginia game. And the refs just seem to not care, because Texas and Oklahoma don't want to be in the Big 12 anymore. I don't know how realistic that plays into it, but it seems that they've been able to get away with late hits as well. And it kind of sucks that our young quarterback got injured that way. And now after the post game with Stark, he seems to think that he won't be able to make it for this game either. He almost led our team back to beat West Virginia. So think that was a strong performance, and I didn't see that game, but that's all I want to talk about.
Well, I appreciate the call. Have a good night.
All right, have a good night.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, before we take this final call, Slim. All right. Slim, if you're still watching, hey, Mark. Hey, Mark. Let's make a bet. Okay. If Ohio State wins and covers the spread, I'll give you 3 helmets you don't have. If Michigan wins by 10 or more, you have me as a guest on your show. We appreciate you. Well, I'm glad that you appreciate me. I appreciate you as well. Thank you so much for that, Slim. So, yeah, sure. I'll do that. You can be on the show. If Michigan wins by more than 10, sure, I'll have you on. I will guarantee you no more than 5 minutes, but you can come on the show. And absolutely. If Michigan wins by more than 10, sure. Got to win by 11, sure. 10 or more, whatever. And you're going to give me some helmets if the Buckeyes cover. Okay, great. Sure. All right, last call of the night. Let's make it a good one here at the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Doug. I'm wondering about last week's game. How do you think Ohio State was able to shut down Michigan State's Heisman front runner as far as their running back?
Well,
Was
I
he
think for all of
mostly
these,
injured, do you think, with the ankle?
So, yes. So a couple things. Number one,
I do too.
they were able to contain him for all of the 6 carries that he got. So even if he was healthy, they didn't give him the ball because they were out of the game. But they also, in my estimation, made a misstep when it was still a game, unless he wasn't healthy. If he wasn't healthy, then he's not available. But I think they kind of got away from him too early in the game. So he ran the ball 6 times for 25 yards, if memory serves me. So they did a nice job on those 6 carries.
Yeah,
but
he had one impressive run where you saw it, and you're like, yeah, that's why he's a Heisman candidate. And then after that, nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, everything was rolling right,
So I
and he
think it
found a
was
hole
ankle.
and dodged a guy, and but between the ankle issue and he only got 6 carries, I wanted to see an Ohio State defense that had to hold up against him for 30 carries, but we did not get a chance to see that.
That was my worry, that they were going to run up and down the field just running the ball, not throwing the ball. So once he was eliminated, the game became one-dimensional. Do you think they can turn Michigan into a one-dimensional team as far as forcing them to throw the ball?
I think that they can turn them into as much of a one-dimensional team as they need to, meaning I don't think they're going to stop Michigan's ground game. No, I think they can slow it down. I think they can make it a 3 to 3.5 yards per carry type attack. So what that means to me is that if Ohio State's offense is clicking on all cylinders and they're able to hold Hassan Haskins to, a 20 carry, 75-yard performance, then they're going to manhandle Michigan. But if Michigan's defense is fairly effective, let's say Michigan's defense plays something in the realm of what Oregon's defense did, which means they gave up a ton of yardage, but only 4 touchdowns. And when I say only 4 touchdowns, we know what Ohio State's offense is capable of. Then Hassan Haskins running for 3.5 yards a carry suddenly becomes effective because they run him, they move the sticks, and even though they're not gashing Ohio State, if they can extend drives, then they keep Stroud on the sideline, and it becomes that kind of game. It becomes more of a manageable 27-24 kind of game rather than a 48-35 Ohio State runs away from them kind of game.
No, I totally agree with that. I think Michigan's running backs are very similar to ours between our first two running backs. You got the one guy that can break it for the long run, and then the shorter guy that is a punishing ball carrier. So
Yeah,
I think they have a similar backfield.
Yep. I would agree with that, although I would take Ohio State's explosive guy, Travion Henderson, over their explosive guy.
No.
But
He doesn't get caught from behind, and that's something that Ohio State always looks for. A guy, once he breaks
for as good as
the
Blake
line of
Corum
scrimmage,
is,
that he does not get caught down from behind.
For as good as Blake Corum is, he's more of a one-dimensional player. He's not a superstar. He's a really good player and explosive player, but Travion Henderson's already arguably the best back in the country. On the flip side, I will take Hassan Haskins over a Mayan Williams or a Master Teague at this point, but they have, especially Mayan Williams, a lot more of their career left to prove that they could be just as good, if not better, than Hassan Haskins. But Haskins is a proven commodity that can get the ball like he did against Penn State 31 times and wear down a defense.
Yeah, my concern has always been Ohio State on this year with short yardage situations. They don't seem to have a running back that can always pick up that tough 1 yard.
Absolutely.
You disagree? Okay. I've seen plenty of times where they were stuffed on third and 1 and then 4th and 1 and not been able to pick up that tough yardage. It seems like our offensive line is much better at pass protection than short yardage gains, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And it's a very big, you got basically 4 tackles and 1 center, and sometimes they struggle with that short yardage situation against better lines in the Big Ten.
Yeah, again, I think that's fair. Sure. Anything else, sir?
Okay. No, I think that's about it. I'm a little worried about our secondary against Michigan. I think Michigan's the most balanced team we faced this year, so it's easy to get excited. You play against Michigan State when they have the worst, pass defense, and it showed against the number 1 pass offense. And then Purdue was a decent defense. So I think Michigan's going to give us a challenge. I think it's going to be, best case scenario, a 14-point game at best for us. And we still got Wisconsin to face after that. So it's not an easy road for Ohio State. I hope they can get the number 2 seed and play a team like Cincinnati, instead of going up against a powerhouse.
There you go. All right, sir. Well,
and
thank you so much.
I still feel before you leave, I still feel Georgia's the best team, and I've seen us embarrassed many times against teams like that. So I just hope if we make it into the playoffs that we can represent ourselves well, and it's an uphill battle.
Okay. All right, sir. Well, thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good night.
You too. All right. Reminding everyone, Wednesday, a doubleheader of Ohio State, Michigan live talk on the Ohio State and Michigan channels at 1:30 Eastern time with our Ohio State crew, with Steve Dace from Michigan Podcast joining. And then at 5 o'clock Eastern time with our Michigan crew, with Tony Gerdeman from Buckeye Scoop joining. That will be a treat. So if you love college football, even if you're not a Buckeyes or Wolverines fan, 2 hours of Ohio State, Michigan live talk with Ohio State and Michigan media going at it at 1:30 Eastern and at 5 Eastern as well, right here at the Voice of College Football. We will see all of you soon. And we appreciate your support, your contributions. You can hit me up at Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App, and just search Mark Rogers TV. All right, everyone. We'll see you on Wednesday.